South Korea. Birth rate crisis. This is South Korea in 1994, and this is South Korea today. In the last 2 decades, Korea has developed into a capitalist success story. It boasts of lively cities, world-class healthcare and education, advanced technologies, and one of the fastest-growing economies in the world. Today's Korea is a country that has almost everything, and this modern-day utopia rides on the success of the 1990s, in which the Korean government and people have made significant changes to the country. Those changes brought Korea to the positive path it's on today, and if it keeps on the same track, the city's economy, health, and education will continue to improve in the next few years. But after that, they'll all come tumbling down, so much so that the country might never recover. Sure, the cities will be there, but there will be no residents. World-class hospitals will be left with no doctors. Best schools will have no students and no teachers, and the economy will eventually crash too. Because for all that, you need people.
People are a resource.
The only resource Korea is running out of. This is the story of South Korea and its shocking population decline. What's wrong with Korea? South Korea's population has been declining for the last 2 years, but even when it wasn't, the ratio of the retired population kept increasing while the youth ratio kept decreasing. In other words, South Korea is facing the pressing problem of an aging population. If a country faces this problem, it will soon have no workforce left, and to solve this, immediate action is needed. You can opt for either of these solutions. 1. Take in skilled migrants to fill the gap, or 2. Motivate people to have babies. South Korea, though, sucks at both. We'll discuss how, but first let's discuss why South Korea has an aging problem to begin with. Take a woman aged between 15 and 49. With her partner, they make a family of 2. If she gives birth to 2 children, the number of people in the family will remain the same after her and her partner's death. Similarly, if every woman in the country gives birth to 2 children and both survive, the population in the country will remain the same. But if one woman says no to having any baby, you'll need another one to give birth to 4, or 2 others who can give birth to 3. Regardless, the average of 2 births per woman must be maintained. This average is called the fertility rate, and the fertility rate that sustains the population is called the replacement level. So, is the replacement level at 2.0 births per woman? Actually, no. This would have been the case if every baby born reached the age of 15, but sometimes children die at a younger age, which raises the replacement level to 2.1. When a country's fertility rate is below 2.1, 2 to 3 decades later, it will have fewer people in their 20s and more in their 60s or 70s. In simple terms, the nation will face the problem of an aging population. Today, many countries have a fertility rate below 2.1, which means they are at risk of an aging population. However, the worst is South Korea, which has a fertility rate of only 0.72. To put that into perspective, imagine a community with 200 people, 100 men and 100 women. Those 100 women give birth to only 70 babies, 35 girls and 35 boys. In the next generation, those 35 women will give birth to 25 children, which means the population will be down from 200 to 25 in just 2 generations. The fertility rate in Korea fell below the replacement level in the 1980s and has been declining ever since. It's as low as 0.27 today, and it is expected to decrease even further. This is already the lowest in recorded history. The lowest before this was 0.77 births per woman in East Germany in 1994. However, that contraction was temporary and caused by a political crisis. South Korea's case is different, as this dip occurred without any economic or security crisis and just keeps worsening. So, what caused it? Why do Koreans not want babies anymore? Understanding these reasons is crucial to addressing the issue. We'll discuss that too. But first, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, take a moment to subscribe and click on the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Why is the fertility rate declining? South Korea can trace its first significant fertility rate decline to around 2002, caused by Asia's financial crisis in 1997. We won't go into details about that, but many Asian economies suffered at that time, and fertility rates declined throughout Asia. Then, from 2005 to 2015, fertility rates kept fluctuating, and while there were no improvements, they didn't get any worse either. However, since 2015, Korea has seen a sharper downward turn. During this phase, the number of married couples with children decreased, and so did the fertility rate of newlyweds. In 2015, fertility rates across all age groups suddenly dropped, a phenomenon known as a period effect. Several factors contributed to this decline. One was a steep increase in rental prices across the capital, Seoul, where young people found it increasingly difficult to afford a home with their earned income. With Seoul making up half of South Korea's population, the rental crisis in Seoul directly affected the country's fertility rate. Another factor is social media. With the rise of social media around 2010, people started comparing their lifestyles and consumption habits with others online. A new kind of competition started that made many people more materialistic. Instead of the traditional path of marriage, they began to prioritize displaying glamorous lifestyles on social media. And finally, it's the sudden economic growth in the last few decades, which has made Korean society extremely competitive. Korean students spend much more time studying than students in other countries. Parents are also pressured to send their students to the best schools and give them extra tuition so they can survive in Korean society.
아마 좀 주변을 의식하고 우리 옆집 애는 학원을 3개, 4개 다니는데 우리 애도 그만큼 보내야겠다라고 생각을 한다면 사실 일반 직장인 월급에
Today, South Korea is the most expensive country in which to raise a child. On average, you need to spend 7.79 times more than Korea's GDP per capita to raise one child to the age of 18. This explains why South Korea has a fertility rate lower than that of any other country on the planet. Why South Korea can't deal with it. When the fertility rate drops, the aging problem starts, and when the aging problem starts, a labor shortage occurs. To tackle the labor shortage, most countries would go for mass-skilled immigration, and to some extent it works. However, when it comes to South Korea, it's not working. In the past, South Korean governments have always had strict immigration policies, and the country was not very welcoming to foreigners. Although they have made their policies easier upon realizing the gravity of the situation, it is still not working. There are many reasons, such as the language barrier. Most Koreans don't speak English, so unless you're fluent in Korean, there aren't any jobs for you in the Korean market. But even if you learn Korean, you might still be unable to land a job because you don't look Korean enough. And this brings us to the second reason: racism. You see, Korea has been an incredibly homogenous country for a long time. The older generations have not interacted with foreigners or people of different ethnicities for most of their lives. Because of that, many of them now don't want to. This has made racism a massive problem in the country. And if you aren't Korean, it can be extremely difficult to land a job.
As soon as they happen to know that I'm from Africa, exactly West Africa, they say there is no job, even though there was a job.
So Korea is left with Plan B, motivating citizens to have more babies, which the current government is working on.
저출생 대응 기획부라는 정부 추진 부처를 신설해서 컨트롤 타워 역할을 맡게 하겠다는 것부터 먼저 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
President Yoon Suk-yeol is trying to do something. The government now gives monthly handouts to couples with babies, and paternity leave has also been doubled from 10 to 20 days. They're really putting their heart and soul into this, but it's not working. Why? Well, because they need to put some brains into it too. While it's true that many married couples do not have children, these policies have entirely ignored the broader population of singles. Furthermore, many Koreans believe these temporary incentives aren't as helpful in the long run. They think they need their living standards to be affordable so that they can think of having babies for the sustainable long term.
아무래도 지금보다는 물가가 조금 잡히고 집값도 좀 떨어지고 지금보다 경제적인 측면으로 살기 좋은 세상이 되면은 아이를 한 명을 낳건 두 명을 낳건 충분히 낳을 수 있다고 생각해요.
This population decline could be fatal to South Korea. It's not just the economy and the Korean market that will suffer. South Korea could face an existential threat. South Korea has a very hostile neighbor to its north, which they technically are still at war with. There is an armistice today, but there might not be one in the future. And if there is a war, they'll need soldiers to fight it. But with this fertility rate, there might not be enough in the future. The low fertility rate is a real problem, but the South Korean government hasn't done anything effective yet. But will there be any effective policies in the future? We don't know, just like we don't know what the future holds for South Korea. But for a better future, many things need to be re-evaluated, not just the government's policies, but also the racist values held by some Korean people. Before we end this video, let us know what you think. Can South Korea come out of this crisis, or will it worsen until there is no South Korea? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you remained with us until the end of the video, leave a baby emoji in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to stay tuned.